Today is April 20th, 2021. I'm Dr. Kashana Soldier, and I have the pleasure of interviewing Ray Wilcox as part of the African American Oral History Project. Ray, can you state your name, please?
Yes, my name is Ray Wilcox, and I am the executive director of Yonkers Arts.
Wonderful. And where did you grow up?
So I was actually born and raised in the Bronx. I moved to Yonkers when I was in sixth grade. So I graduated from my junior high school in the Bronx, and then I went to high school here in Yonkers.
And who did you grow up with?
Oh, I grew up with my parents. My parents been great. They're my stability. They're my foundation. So I grew up with my parents. Both I'm fortunate enough to have both my parents in the house. But yeah, they're my guys and my two brothers, of course.
And what schools did you attend? I know you talked a bit about schools in the Bronx, but then also in Yonkers.
Sure. Yeah, so I'm a Catholic school kid. I went to St. Peter and Paul in the Bronx, right on Brook Avenue. And then when I came up to Yonkers, I went to Sacred Heart High School. And Sacred Heart High School was pretty interesting.
And what are your memories of this? What was the neighborhood like? What was the school like? Can you talk to us a bit about that
Sure.
experience?
You know what? One of the biggest things about my transition, because being I was still in Yonkers prior to going to the high school, was just really engaging of more of my peers that was my age outside of people on my block. And that right there, I mean, I started getting a little bit more friends that wasn't persons of color, and it was just something that was, it was a I wouldn't say a culture shock because the Yonkers and the Bronx, like we're neighbors, and it's pretty much just almost the same thing. But there was definitely a different dynamic when I left the Bronx and moved to Yonkers in regards to just like my circles started expanding. I really started getting really more focused about sports, and my academia was very important to me. Everything's always been important to me ever since I was a kid.
And you talked a bit about your transition, your parents, and your brothers, but I'd love to know, how did you balance it all? Having a different and diversified group of friends, but then also balancing
Sure.
school and sports.
Sure. Honestly, it was the sports. The sports right there, and playing basketball and football has really helped me with that transition. So I wasn't really. I'm very very personable. It's not hard for me to meet new friends and be that guy to kind of like be the guy in the room that's making the most noise. So I'm always been that guy, but it was just something different in regards to like okay, accepting them really into my circle, and that was something that was new, and I loved it. I still have friends to this day that high school guys that we still communicate to this day. A lot of them are cops, um, so that's very interesting. Here in Yonkers is a big city, but it's really small, and I run into a lot of my schoolmates all the time. Believe me.
And were there any places that you regularly visited in Yonkers, whether it was in high school or after high school? What were some of the places that you hung out at?
Oh well, I mean, again, I was always on the basketball court. You could always find me there. But when it came to just hanging out and doing kid stuff, I mean, we were always at the marina by the water. Yeah, being from the Bronx, we don't really have access to the water other than City Island, right? So when it comes to having that waterfront area, Yonkers was definitely new. And we was always in downtown Yonkers, always by the marina. I used to love skating, so I used to go to Murray's on Tuckahoe. So yes, I was always around. Again, I was always out. That's my thing. I could go on my bike and I could explore anywhere, especially if there's a court near it. I'm pretty familiar with the area for sure.
And besides sports, what do you enjoy doing in your spare time?
Oh man, I love reading. That's one of my things. I'm a boxer. I love boxing because doing what I do, especially working in the nonprofit sector, you take a lot of bumps and bruises. So having to hit a bag here and there is always some good ways of just managing my stress levels. But I just love kicking it. Really, I grew up a lot in the last couple of years, so I'm not really out there as much. But yeah, I'm a homebody, man. I like being home. I like jumping on the computer and seeing what's going on the net. But other than that, yeah, I'm always working.
So before we get into all the work that you do, I'd love to know, since this is for Yonkers Public Library, what are some of your favorite books?
Oh man. Oh, so my one of my first books I've ever read was the autobiography of Malcolm X, and that right there is probably the best book I think I've ever read. But you know, a lot of the hood books, I read the Iceberg Slim books when I was growing up. Get reference, bro. For those, I'm dating myself now, right? Man Child from the Promised Land was definitely one of my books that I grew up on. Um, but then, you know, I'm a fiction guy too. So all the Game of Thrones books, I've always been into comic books and graphic novels. I'm a big DC and Marvel guy. But it spans, it varies really. It depends on where I'm at. So right now I'm actually reading a kid's book. It's a really, really dope book that is written by, oh wow, I can't think of the name. It's but Muhammad Ali, but it's a kid's book and it's dope how they split it up and every round is a different poem and it's integrated. It's really, really dope. So I'm reading that right now. I'll probably be done with that by the end of this week, but very, very big on books.
So we talked a bit about sort of your growing up and what you do in your spare time, but I'd love to hear about your transition to what you do now. What led you
Sure.
down that path and how'd you get there?
Sure. So I worked corporate for almost 20 years, and I've had experiences doing door-to-door sales, basic marketing jobs. But my last job was my biggest corporate job. I mean, I did cinema advertising, so we had theaters all across the country, and I was responsible for a large portion of that. So about 800 theaters across the country. Um, it was really, really dope. I started really seeing the dynamics of systemic racism inside there as well. So my last job was really my eye opener to what the world was really like in corporate, and I really understood that. And I've always been about my community, very very big on that. And being that I had jobs in different areas. Again, I worked in places of Scarsdale, I worked in White Plains, all these different places. I was able to see the resources that was allowed and given to a lot of our neighbors. And here in Yonkers, we had a fraction of it. So I really, you know, I did my due diligence while I was working corporate. I left corporate in 2016. And from there, we created a Power Lab after going to all the WeWorks back in the day when WeWork was like the thing. I visited the WeWorks. I used to take my lunches there, my extended lunches there, and just absorb the ambiance and the experiences of what some of the tenants were having. And I was like, this is amazing. Like we need this here in Yonkers because it's a bunch of ambitious um, people like me that leave Yonkers to go seek those resources. So I was like, you know what? We were fortunate enough to have access to a space. We converted the space into our own local co-working facility. So we created the Power Lab based on the same business model as a WeWork, but we were very very big and passionate about our community philanthropy and our give back. So a lot of our programs are geared towards our low income community neighbors to come inside there and really have access to those resources. So from financial literacy to coding and IT to different branding and marketing classes, we felt it was very, very important to allow our community to come to us and have it. So that was the basis of it. That was my transition. And from there, the Power Lab is its own art gallery in itself. We made it so that it's very bright and vibrant. When you come inside there, you see all these dope pieces from local artists. And it was really my introduction to the art community here. And you know, something about me is that I'm a workaholic and I work my tail off all the time. And my board realized that. And sorry, not my board, my 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 coworkers, I was actually invited to sit on the Yonkers Arts board, and still I was really, really working more than all of my board members. So from there, they seen the potential in myself, and they nominated me the first executive director of the organization.
That is a big transition. So I kind of want to
Yeah,
unpack a few of the things that you said. So you spoke a bit
sure.
about encountering systemic racism in corporate America,
Hmm.
and I'd love to understand
Absolutely.
what was that experience like, and how did you sort of use those experiences to your benefit with Yonkers Arts?
Sure. Again, my supervisor, she's a Black woman. She hired me, and I pretty much learned when it comes to anything cinema. I learned everything and anything from her. She was the pillar. She carried that job for a long, long time prior to me even being there. And the one things I noticed was that she was probably one of the highest ranking, workers, employees there, but she wouldn't have an office. You'll walk around the entire facility and you see everybody in the offices, and nobody looked like us. No one looked like us. So that right there started opening my eyes initially, and then I started to just kind of see how the dynamic inside there was. So you know, kind of silencing our voice a little bit to enhance other people's voices. Not necessarily, I wouldn't say all the time on the strength of it being a racial type of racial reason, but people that they knew, it was very clicky, and all the cliques seemed to be of a dynamic. Dynamic seemed to be more of that particular, nationality. But started seeing that from there. A few times I've seen, some of the supervisors come and touch her hair. Oh, this is just, yeah, 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 exactly. And I'm sitting there, and that's when I'm like, okay, this is really real inside here. So small things like that may seem small to, some of our coworkers, but very big to us. And we definitely realized that very, very fast. So from there, again, like I said, I just realized that this is prominent throughout. How come the schools and public schools here in Yonkers don't have those same resources as the schools in Scarsdale? Because I used to go to Scarsdale and do training there with the kids, and I used to see it. I see these $1 million fields. I see these $1 million libraries, weight rooms that's cost more than the school that I was actually went to. It was crazy to me, and that's my thing. I don't like seeing my people in a certain place, and I'm gonna do whatever I can to allow them the same resources.
So one of the things that you spoke about was finding space for the community. And
Hmm.
we also just spoke about sort of prejudice and discrimination. I was wondering, how are you feeling or what are you doing with sort of the current climate that we're in with, for example, the trial of George Floyd, with all of these sort of horrific race-based incidents happening? What are you doing within the community and how are you making that space that you work in welcoming for others?
Sure. So, I mean, when it comes to this programming period, I'm always trying to engage artists and artisans, creatives of all backgrounds. I want to provide resources. So, luckily enough, we actually partnered with the library to put together the I'm a Hero program, which allows these students, these young superhero students, to find that superpower within themselves and strengthen themselves from early. And that's something that we feel is very, very important. And I want to create. So, I mean, I want to keep creating programs like that through strategic partnerships. So how can we really partner with the PAL to really start allowing some more programs for these kids to be educated? I mentioned PAL because I was there earlier. So yeah, I'm very, very big on partnerships, and it's plenty of great community organizations doing phenomenal work. And whatever I could do to enhance their particular, because again, my marketing background, whatever I can do to enhance their particular awareness on whatever program they're doing, I'm always for that. But when it comes to partnerships, that's very, very big to me. So again, systemic racism starts with systemic racism actually involves some of the food insecurities as well. So how can we really address that? And again, we're an arts organization. I'm not really big. I'm not really, proficient in doing a lot of these community initiatives. But the one thing that we can do is we can make it an art program by decorating that refrigerator and the casing around it. So this way, it's a bright community art spot, and people will flock to it, and it addresses that same project. So that's my thing. Partnerships is very big. I'm not about recreating the wheel because, like I said, there's plenty of people doing phenomenal work. But what can we do together to really enhance that particular messaging and narrative and program? And I'm always for that.
So you talked a bit about partnerships, but can you sort of talk a bit more about some of the programs that you offer at Yonkers Arts and what's your vision for the future of your organization?
Sure. So some of the partnerships we have. I mean, our board members comprised of a whole bunch of different leaders in the arts already. So we have Julie Cousins that sits on my board. She's the executive director of the Blue Door Gallery. We have members of We Are One that's part of my board. So I'm always looking to try to strengthen my board. But when it comes to the partnerships now, we're able to work with, I mean, plenty of people. I mean, I have strong relationships with Hudson River Museum, with Masha Turchinsky, and name them. You could throw a name in a bucket, and I'm pretty sure tell you how we have a relationship. But like I said, partnerships is very big because that was something that I learned a lot from working in corporate. My CMO was very, very big on strategic partnerships, and I used to go with him to some of the meetings and sit in some of the brainstorm sessions and find out reasons as to why this is important to be in a relationship with this particular brand or a particular company. So I took that with me. And I'm very sociable. I'm able to, to work a room and network. But the same thing too, people like working with me because they see that I'm just an intense worker. I'm relentless. And especially when it comes to the BLM project, the city of Yonkers knew how relentless I was because I was on them every few days. And that's something I think that a lot of people don't have here in Yonkers. And that comes from working corporate.
So can you talk a bit more about the BLM project and what its impact was in Yonkers, and if you thought it
Yes.
accomplished everything that you thought it was supposed to?
I mean, yeah. So people that know Yonkers know the dynamic and history of Yonkers. That's not that far away. I mean, the DSEG suits happened in the late '80s, so a lot of that, a lot of the characteristics behind that still are pretty prevalent. I'm not going to say they're very, very big, but you can see the pockets. You can see North Yonkers looks different than Southwest Yonkers. You can go to different parts and it's different, right? So the reason why I took it on, and actually it came to fruition while I was in San Diego. I was going to San Diego on vacation, and I was like, yo, wait a minute. Yonkers has all this history regarding racial relations and race, and there's no one doing this. I'm the first Black executive director of an arts organization. Nah. So from there, I started working. My vacation was cut short. I mean, I was still out there, but I was working, and I started reaching out to a lot of my people here in Yonkers. I mean, I reached out to the Y. I reached out to West Habs. I was reaching out to all my guys here in Yonkers to see if this is something that's a feasible project. And sure enough, that me reaching out to those 2 people was me reaching out to 60 people. And it caught like wildfire. Now, did I see or experience a lot of backlash and personal vendettas and anonymous phone calls and stuff? Yes. I mean, yes, that definitely did happen. But it was expected because I knew the gravity of the project, and a lot of people, false narratives, wrong press went out there. It was crazy leading up to it. So we had to deal with a lot of QC and crowd control prior to the actual installation. But it was, again, I still to this day say that project was the biggest project that I've done in my entire life. Working corporate, doing anything that I've done is the biggest project that I've ever done. And we from that, I mean, we was able to form a coalition, and we had a few meetings in regards to what we're looking to do and see how we could attack some of the issues on the ground level with just the synergistic efforts of these particular groups. And just the conversation kind of dwindled, but the core still remains the same. And that core groups that we reach out to are the same core that I'm rolling out the Art the Park project with, and with the community fridge project and all these other different programs as well. So I would say, yeah, a lot of synergy and a lot of energy came from the project. But going into the project, again, it was an adventure.
And through that journey, how do you define how Black Lives Matter as a Black man?
Sure. That's a very good question. So again, as a Black man and in my position and doing everything I've done in my experiences, I feel it's very, very important to be in the position to have the opportunity to speak to the young men that look like me. So I'm very big on mentorship. I've worked with MBK and doing a couple of different programs. Our first program actually at the Power Lab was a coding program for the MBK students, and they loved it, and it was a hit. So from there, that really fortified our relationship with the public schools, and we were able to do public school programming. But again, I'm very, very big on that. So like a lot of people I speak to, a lot of young men here in Yonkers haven't left Yonkers. They don't. That's the only thing they do. The only thing they know is Yonkers. And even as old as, again, my Power Lab's manager, he's about 20, 23, 24 years old. I'm just trying to, peak his experiences by just leaving the block and leaving Yonkers. And I'm very, very big on that. I'm very, very big on educating and providing my people, especially people that look like me, the resources that I didn't have and they don't have. So that's very, very big. I mean, as a Black man, that's something that I'm gonna live and die doing, honestly, because it's very, very important.
And with that, you've done so much work in the community, but are there any sort of community service projects that you're the most proud of that you've done in Yonkers?
BLM is definitely the project I'm most proud of. I'll tell you guys an interesting story. So the I'm a Hero program was birthed last year on January 26th. So January 26th, 2020. And I'm a big time Laker fan. Like, you go back to, I've been a Magic Johnson fan since '85. And that's when I was a baby, right? So people that follow, January 26th was the day that Kobe passed away last year. And he was my hero. So the creation of the I'm a Hero program, it stems from that, and that's very, very important to me. So I'm looking to see if we could continue our partnership with the library, some of our funders, to carry this program on for a while. I would love to see how we could really strengthen this program to see if we could bring it across the country, because that's how proud I am about it. But between the BLM and that hero program, I would say the trifecta would be the Art in the Park project, because I would live on the basketball courts, and being able to refurbish some of these parks and playgrounds with some beautiful art installations is only going to bring the community out more. And that's something I'm very, very big. Can you imagine having a few different decorated basketball courts or playgrounds in these varying neighborhoods? So imagine just these different parks and the different design ideations and variations that these parks have. It's only going to bring the personality of that park out more, and you'll see how the kids and even people from out of town are going to flock towards these parks and playgrounds just because of that. So those are my trifecta. I'm still working on those three. I want to perfect those, and then I'm gonna look to see how we can expand going forward.
And for our audience, can you tell them where some of these basketball courts are so they can go visit them?
So again, we haven't started yet. I'm looking to kick it off in this year. So we identified a few parks. So I really want to start on Commerce Park, because it's a one court and it has a bunch of walls there that it could serve as our beta project. So from there we could template. I'm all about templating and making it easy so that I could just replicate it. Template, replicate, template, replicate. So I want to do Commerce Park. I would love to see how we could do Serrato Park, which is on Riverdale. There's a park behind School 23. It's relatively close to me, called Sullivan's Oval, which is a great park, big park, about 6 different courts. We can do something very, very big there. Smith Park, which is right across the street from the Carpenter Mills Arts District. There's a few. We identified about 10 different parks, and I'm looking to do 10 in 5 years. So if we could do that through partnerships and some funding, then we'll do it.
And given that this sort of interview series is sort of birthed out of Black History Month, what does Black History Month mean to you, and how do you celebrate it each year?
So when it comes to me, and people will notice it through our Yonkers Arts page, I celebrate, Black History Month, yes, but I acknowledge our history every month. So every week we feature whether it's we combine Black History Month and Women's Appreciation Month, very, very important to me. Every week we feature again a person of color artist or a local artist or a woman, a female artist. Very big on that. I'm very big on our history. Even if I gotta come check a couple people sometimes about our history. That's the wrong month to try to check me on our history. But yeah, I think it's very, very big to me, and I don't believe that we should have the shortest month. But I'm very, very big on carrying that narrative throughout the entire year. I'm actually looking at a picture right now on my computer of Kehan Winley, who's a really, really dope artist. He's the artist that did the Obama portrait. And I have his pictures all on my computer screen in the background. And he was one of the actual artists that we recognized and posted on our page. So stuff like that. Even if it's a minimum, man, I'm always about that. We got to get that message across.
Sort of with that message of celebration of sort of Blackness and identity, what led you to art and falling in love with it?
So I've always been a fanatic of art. I've always been a fan. I can't draw, I can't paint. I can color, and I highlight the bold on the lines, and I color within the lines back in the how we okay. I'm very good at drawing the dollar signs, how we do it. But when it comes to art, I'm clueless. My artistry really is my marketing experience and able to formulate plans and strategies in my head, like real time. Like honestly, I can have a conversation with someone, they have a plan. I may go into like a little chin rubbing. I may start looking a different way, and within five minutes, I could probably put together like a nice business plan for you. So that's my artistry. I'm very creative when it comes to that. I hold nothing back in regards to being ambitious and as creative as possible. I'm very, very big on fostering that, especially when it comes to young creatives. So that's my particular creativity and artistry in a nutshell.
And with that creativity and artistry, is there any sort of tips or suggestion that you give to our audience about entrepreneurship and sort of putting yourself out there to create a business?
Sure. The biggest thing, honestly, and I carry this with me to this day, is the value of relationships. People don't understand how important that is. If you can maintain relationships, one relationship can lead you to a million things. In doing the BLM mural, it was fortunate enough that in working with the city, I developed a stronger relationship with the city, and now they reach out to me to do some more work. So that's something I value very, very, very importantly. Relationships, consistency is something that's very important as well. You could take on some of the biggest projects, But if you're consistent in knocking something off every week, or maybe even every day, spend an hour or two just knocking something off every day, you'll get there. And a lot of people don't see that. A lot of people see that small, that tall tree, but at the same time too, they don't understand that just knocking it off slowly, knocking down slowly, it'll pay off.
And with that being said, who are the people that you look up to, whether in Yonkers, locally, or anybody that has inspired your career path or your outlook on
Sure.
life?
Oh man, I have a few. My parents, for one, definitely with them. My dad, he used to be an army dad. My dad was an army dad, so very very big on consistency. It all starts back when we used to fold out beds. The hospital corners were a thing. Be consistent with your hospital corners. so, so yeah, consistency, it starts from them. But again, my aunt, she's very very big, a very prominent woman in the NBA. She's very very pivotal in my development. But then, I do value the work of some of the community members. I love what you guys are doing at the library. Jesse is my guy. I look forward to continuing my relationship with him. I love working with the YMCA and Lucrea. Those are my guys too. Grayson Foundation and Joe Kenner. There's a bunch of guys around here that's doing phenomenal work, and I just value them, and I look forward to continuing my relationship with those guys.
So, in the spirit of sort of shouting people out, is there any advice or anything else you'd like to share with our audience since we're at the conclusion of the interview?
You know what? Honestly, it's just really, I would say, keep true to yourself. Don't feel that any idea, any project is too big. Like I said, consistency, you can knock something off by just being consistent. Don't be afraid to be out there. You can use yourself as your own brand. People tend to work with people that they love to just be around. Have that personality. Don't be shy, and just foster those relationships, man. And I can't tell you how enough that actually carried me throughout my career. Certain things happen where it knocks you down and you feel like you can't get back up, but then you just have one quick conversation with someone that you've been working with, and it just helps you just get out of that rut. And that's something that, again, I've been through a few times, and I thank God for the community members that I've been able to reach out to kind of help me stay on that lane. So just stay true to yourself and be consistent and smile, man. Smile behind your mask.
Thank you, Ray. You always bring such energy, such excitement, and so much enthusiasm to everything that
Thank
you
you.
do. So before we wrap, please plug Yonkers Arts. How can people find you? How can they get in
Yes,
touch with your programming? How can they be supportive?
sure. You can follow us on www.yonkersarts.org, on Instagram, Facebook at Yonkers Arts. But for the Art in the Park project, I have its own specific website for that. Is www.artintheparkyonkers.org, and you can find all the information in regards to that project on there. If you're interested in anything in regards to the I'm a Hero program, please email me. I would love to give you information about that in our next cohort. But that's it. Just stay tuned for a lot of new work that we're doing. Stay tuned for updates with the mural. I have an update on the mural. I don't have updates on updating the mural yet. Okay, so stay tuned. I don't want to throw something out there that's not right.
Thank you, Ray. It's always a pleasure.
The pleasure. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. This was fun.